Alright, we're diving into Domain 1, and this is where the exam gets real. Governance sounds dry, I know, but here's the thing 31% of your exam comes from this domain, and the questions aren't asking you to recite frameworks. They're putting you in the seat of an AI security manager and asking what you'd do. Would you know which governance model fits a global bank versus a startup? Would you know when the EU AI Act kicks in versus GDPR? By the end of this video, you will. Let's go. Let's set the stage for Domain 1. It covers 31% of the exam, roughly 28 questions, and it spans 5 sub-areas: frameworks and regulations, policies, asset management, program management, and business continuity and incident response. This video focuses on sub-area 1A, frameworks and regulatory requirements. Now, here's what I want you to understand about how this domain is tested. The exam will describe a situation, say a company expanding AI into a regulated industry, and ask what governance action comes first. The answer is almost never implement a control. It's almost always establish governance, define roles, assess risk. Keep that in mind throughout this video. Let's start with the foundations. AI governance rests on 4 pillars: transparency, fairness, accountability, and safety. Now, these aren't just nice sounding words. Let me make them real. I was working on an AI deployment for a financial services client. Their credit scoring model was flagging certain postal codes at higher rates. Nobody had built the model to discriminate, but without transparency into how it made decisions and without fairness checks on the outputs, the bias went undetected for months. That's exactly what these governance principles are designed to prevent. Transparency means the AI's decisions can be explained and audited. Fairness means you're actively checking for discriminatory outcomes. Accountability means someone owns every AI system and its consequences. And safety means humans stay in control. These 4 don't just apply to high-risk AI, they apply to any AI system touching business decisions. Now, how do you actually structure AI governance in an organization? There are 2 main models, centralized and federated, and most real organizations land somewhere in between. In a centralized model, one AI governance body sets policy and has authority across the entire organization. Think of a large regulated bank where the CISO's office owns all AI governance. In a federated model, individual business units govern their own AI within enterprise-defined guardrails. Imagine a global tech company where the marketing team, the product team, and the data science team each govern their AI tools, but all within a shared framework. The exam loves to test which model fits a given scenario. The key signal is the organization's risk profile and regulatory environment. High risk, highly regulated; centralized fits better. Diverse, fast-moving, geographically spread; federated, with a strong policy backbone tends to work. So who actually owns AI governance? Let's talk through the key players because the exam will test your ability to assign the right accountability to the right role. The board and C-suite set the risk appetite and strategic direction. They're not running the program, but they're accountable for it at the top. The AI security manager, that's the role you're being certified for, owns the program, the policies, the controls, and the metrics. Data scientists and engineers build and operate within the guardrails that governance sets. And then you have legal, risk, and ethics committees who advise on compliance and fairness. Here's a trap the exam loves: scenarios where IT is given AI risk ownership. That's wrong. Business process owners own the risk. IT supports it. Keep that distinction sharp. The NIST AI RMF is one of the most tested frameworks in this exam, so let's spend time on it. It has 4 functions: govern, map, measure, manage. Govern is where you establish the policies, roles, culture, and oversight structures. Map is where you identify and contextualize AI risks. Who's affected? What categories of risk exist? Measure is where you assess the likelihood and impact of those risks. and manage is where you prioritize and treat them. Think of it like a hospital triage system. Govern is setting up the emergency room protocol. Map is identifying what kind of emergency each patient has. Measure is assessing how critical each case is. And manage is deciding who gets treated first and how. The exam will test the sequence. Govern always comes first. Don't mix up the order. Now let's look at the ISO standards. ISO 42001 is the AI Management System standard. It covers AI governance, objectives, and continuous improvement. Think of it as the AI-specific version of ISO 27001. ISO 27001 itself, which most of you will know from your CISM or CISSP preparation, extends naturally into AI, covering controls around the data, the model, and the underlying infrastructure. Here's the exam tip. When a scenario asks which standard governs the AI management system, the answer is ISO 42001. When it asks about information security controls applied to AI systems, ISO 27001 is the anchor. The exam tests whether you can match the right standard to the right governance need. Don't just memorize the names. Understand what each one is designed to do. The EU AI Act is probably the most tested regulation in this exam, so pay close attention. It introduces a 4-tier risk classification for AI systems. At the top, prohibited AI. Things like social scoring systems and real-time biometric surveillance in public spaces. These are banned outright. Below that, high-risk AI. This covers AI used in hiring, credit decisions, critical infrastructure, and law enforcement. These require conformity assessments and strict controls. Then, limited risk AI, chatbots and similar, where transparency obligations apply. And finally, minimal risk AI, things like spam filters. The penalties for non-compliance are significant, up to 35 million euros or 7% of global annual turnover. When the exam presents a scenario involving a new AI deployment, your first instinct should be to classify it under the EU AI Act risk tiers. Beyond the EU AI Act, the regulatory landscape is genuinely global and genuinely fragmented. In the US, the NIST AI RMF is the go-to framework for federal use. But there's no single federal AI law yet. State-level regulations are emerging, particularly around algorithmic decision-making. In the EU, the AI Act is the most comprehensive framework in the world, and it's the one the exam tests most heavily. China, Singapore, Japan, the UK, and Canada each have their own distinct approaches. For the exam, the key concept is that a global organization can't just comply with one jurisdiction's rules. You need a layered strategy, one that can flex to meet different national requirements while maintaining a coherent global governance posture. If a scenario involves cross-border AI, think jurisdiction-aware compliance first. Now let's connect AI governance to data protection, specifically GDPR, which most of you already have some familiarity with. When an AI system processes personal data, GDPR requires a lawful basis, and you need to document it. Automated decision-making that significantly affects individuals, loan approvals, HR scoring, insurance underwriting, gives those individuals rights. They can request an explanation of the decision. They can challenge it. They have the right to human review. Article 22 of GDPR is the one to know here. And privacy by design is not optional. It must be embedded in the AI system from the very beginning of development, not bolted on afterward. A scenario where an organization deploys an AI system using personal data without a DPIA or lawful basis documentation, that's a compliance failure before the system even goes live. Let me close this section with the exam tips that matter most for 1A. Memorize the NIST AI RMF order. Govern, map, measure, manage. The exam will test whether you know what comes first. For the EU AI Act, know the 4 risk tiers cold, especially the line between prohibited and high-risk AI. When a question asks which framework applies, match the scenario to the framework's purpose. NIST AI RMF for risk management, ISO 42001 for management systems, EU AI Act for regulatory classification. And for governance questions, remember, the answers are almost always about accountability, roles, and oversight, not about technical controls. That distinction is what separates governance thinking from engineering thinking, and it's the lens ISACA wants you to use.